My guest today, Geoff Laughton, is an internationally in-demand relationship coach known as your Relationship Architect. He is the author of the internationally best-selling books, Instant Insights on Building a Conflict-Proof Relationship and Build to Last, Designing and Maintaining a Loving, Lasting, and Passionate Relationship. And he's co-authored 3 other books. He's been guiding couples and individuals in designing and building the authentic relationships and lives they truly desire for 26 years. He's also an innovator in supporting men from all over the world in living more authentic lives of purpose through his global men's community, The Evolving Man, leading groups and coaching men ready to take their life game up to the next level. Inspired by his marriage of 39 years, Geoff coaches people in how to go beyond the settling that so many people accept with their relationships and lives to create a life that matches their fully authentic selves. And Geoff is a dear friend and a fabulous professional, and I'm so excited to have you here, Geoff.
Great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, it's perfect for you. I mean, this is your work, right? This deep,
pretty much
work. Yeah. So, and of course, you and Sarah, your wife, Sarah, have an awesome relationship. And Geoff, and my husband, Geoff, and I have gotten to experience some time with the two of you. And you really do have this sweet rapport that is inspiring, truly inspiring, that I know you've cultivated consciously. So talk about that with us. What is a conscious relationship? What does that mean?
To me, what that means is that there is a vision for the relationship. You've got a strong sense of what the relationship is really for, besides just having a companion and, someone to be intimate with and all that. I mean, that's all great. But I find that the combination of seeing our relationship as having its own kind of sacred purpose besides just our fancy, if you will, has been a big factor in why we've been together so long and gotten through some very difficult times over the decades. I think a conscious relationship is also one where you intentionally see and cultivate your relationship as a sacred and spiritual tool and path all at once. Rather than this thing that is at the mercy of wherever your crazy ego will take you. And then I think also another element of conscious relationship is, I would say, an above the average level of self-awareness. And that you get so good at knowing yourself, knowing your spirit, knowing your heart, but especially knowing this thing and how it operates, so that you really can, when the relationship is veering off the kind of the spiritual highway, that you're able to course correct quickly, and that when you struggle with that, you tap into your spirit. And if you happen to be someone that believes in a higher power, call it what you will, that you go there when you're at a loss. And if you're not getting an answer there, then you just quiet down and you wait until you get an internal answer that resonates through your whole body, and then you go from there.
Yeah. You've really mentioned a couple of things that I've certainly found to be true in my relationship with Jeffrey, and we've been together about 17 years now. That sense of higher purpose, that isn't where we started.
No.
It certainly would. Yeah, it's all the hots for each other. That's how it starts, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're hot. You're cool. This is fun.
Yep. Yeah. But that sense of allowing it to mature into a spiritual evolution together, a sense of purpose together that you're co-creating now together. And you're so
Yeah.
right. The ego mind is what gets in the way.
Always. And, for the first probably 82 to 94. So the first 12 years of our relationship, we weren't there. That was something that came clear to both of us. Well, I'll speak for me. It wasn't there for me. It may have been there for Sarah. But, when we got together, I was 24. And, I thought I knew everything I needed to know at 24.
As we do.
Oh, my God. Thank God for the power of seasoning and maturity over youthful arrogance. But about 12 years in was when I really had what, I think most people that work in spiritual type of work would recognize as a spiritual emergency. And that got everything onto a whole new plane. And that was when spirituality became a key thing for me. And it had always been for Sarah. So we got to find our own path to whatever this spiritually led relationship was going to look like. And it's just kept on going for, another, 35 years, 36 years, something like that.
Oh, my goodness. What a beautiful discovery that you made. And that you were willing to open to that emergency and see what you needed. And it was something for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that you're bringing a word like lovely. If anybody watching this is old enough to remember ever watching the Flintstones cartoon when we were younger, and the character Bam Bam, and somebody would go to shake his hand and he'd just flip him, and slap him against the floor. That was my spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
So the outcome has been lovely, but I don't want to, lead anyone down the garden path. That kind of awakening is different for everybody, but I've worked with enough and helped enough people through that. It's rarely pretty, it's never planned, and it never has looked the way you thought it might if you tend to, get too caught up in what I would say, 80s era new age kind of languaging and the kind of stuff that you would read about in the 80s. It's a little more rough and tumble than that, but worth it. I wouldn't take any of it back.
I'm really so glad you're speaking to that because, yes, the outcome is lovely. It ends up being the gift you didn't know you needed to give yourself, but rarely are those spiritual awakenings easy. They are going to get you face to face with you at a level of honesty and truth with yourself and in terms of what you're creating that we're not expecting. We don't expect it to even to happen, let alone often the way that it does.
Yeah, well, and what came to me as you said that is that it really, for me, it put me face to face with who I never was, that I thought I was, right? The thing about a spiritual, if you be careful what you ask for, because if you say, I want to devote my life to spiritual unfoldment, spiritual awakening, spiritual enlightenment, the first step is always getting put, right here with your ego identity which is rarely who any of us actually are. But until you get that contrast, like, oh yeah, you think this is who you are? Watch this. It until you get that contrast, you probably really don't know the difference. You don't know that you're not your ego, and you're not the identity that your ego has compiled from the time you were in the womb up to, present day.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And that, of course, is what's interfering with the ability to be in a state of spiritual awakening and live from that awakened perspective. It's also what interferes with our relationships. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Most of the time, the way I look at spirit and spiritual reality, spirit is a complete, loving, benevolent energy, presence, consciousness, however you might want to look at it. And so I had to learn that my spirit, so I define that in one way, from a divine perspective, but for people who are atheistic or agnostic, just don't believe in spirituality or religion, and I'm speaking strictly from a spirituality perspective, not a religious one, it never occurred to me that all the ways that I would abuse myself, beat myself up, my complete lack of confidence, once upon a time, it never occurred to me that that was all generated by my ego, and that the divine or my spirit that'll leave this body when I take my last breath. Because if you don't believe in a higher power, if you've ever been with somebody when they die, Elvis leaves the building. That is a life force that does not hang out. And when it goes, this thing, you don't even look like yourself anymore. So that part of me and my conception of the divine would never talk to me the way my mind can talk to me, would never talk to any other human being the way that my mind, your mind, everybody's mind can talk to us. So that was a huge, that getting that how we behave, how we react, where we get triggered, what we do when we get triggered, all of that is the ego mind. And it's all like a piece of software. I look at the brain, the human brain is kind of like the hard drive. And our personality and patterns and wounds, yada, 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 is the software that got programmed onto that hard drive all throughout our childhood and our adolescence. And that becomes the operating system that we unconsciously come from. And so, to get back to your question, yeah, if you can know the difference between that reality, which is a fabricated reality, and what's inherently and innately loving and connective, then, when stuff comes up in the relationship, you've got a whole different toolkit to use to work through it. But if you don't know that, you just think your partner's being an ass and a jerk, or you're thinking that every man or every woman that you've ever dated is just really fundamentally flawed, because God forbid you'd actually notice that you're the common denominator in every relationship you've ever had. So you kind of gotta look in here and up here and figure out what the programming is that isn't effective and change it.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying and change it, because it's your responsibility to change it. We're often, and especially as a woman and working with so many women, I see this, we're so busy trying to change our partners so that we'll be happy. And that codependent tendency, when you finally wake up to it, is like, oh, this isn't working. This has never worked. What am I doing?
I know, it's so much more fun to blame them.
Yeah, it really is so much easier to be right about what's wrong with them. It's so much easier.
Now, we never did that. I want the audience to know Misa and I have never made that.
That's right. No. We won't ask Jeffrey or Sarah in here to comment.
Yeah, they tell the truth.
They certainly will. Yeah, it's where we start until we finally get that. Wait a minute. You're right. When you get that you're the common denominator and you have a role, that's when things change, because you are willing to change if you're invested in maintaining that relationship and the love that you are experiencing.
Yep.
You got to do it. You got to get in there and do it. What do you think are the big blocks? What are the common ones that couples come to you with?
Well, the one we were just talking about is one of the main ones. The tendency, ironically, to be very self-referential without the responsibility part. So, I'm always looking at, am I happy today? Am I happy now? Am I satisfied now? Am I fulfilled now? Is my partner fulfilling me? Is my partner entertaining me adequately? So me, but not going, they haven't talked to me for a few days, or they've been very cold. I wonder what's wrong with them. But not looking at, I went to a workshop with Jack Canfield once, and he suggested asking ourselves a question when we're in an upset with our partner. And I thought it was brilliant. And it went, how am I being, or not being, how am I being such that my partner is interacting with me the way they are? If Sarah was great, if she's been in a great mood all day, and, I might say something, and then all of a sudden, I get the face of doom that everybody has, that usually ignites in our inner children. I need to, what that quote from Jack has done for me ever since is I'm much more likely to, instead of what I would do in the past, which is, geez, what got in her bonnet? I'm going to go, wait a minute, that just happened after I said whatever I said. So what was my energy? How was I being? And this leads to another block, is that you have little to no self-awareness. I mentioned that earlier, but this is a good place to re-emphasize the importance of it. Because to do what I just said, I assert from all the people I've worked with over the years, is not a commonplace talent. It's a skill. I used to think when I was a teenager, and even a boy, I was aware of a lot, but, and I know you can relate to this, I was very tuned in and aware of what was happening energetically with other people around me. So I could read their energy, and, I could figure out how I needed to dance with that energy. But I wasn't as aware about me. And when I was in high school and started really actively being on a seeker path, when I look at what I know now and what I knew then, it takes a lot of practice and a lot of support. So I think your level of self-awareness can be a massive block to a healthy relationship, much less a conscious one. So that's two. And then a third block is really having the propensity to want to blame other people for how your life is going. And, going down the victim pathway. That, the finger pointing, when couples hire me to help them, I tell them before they even hire me, one key ground rule in our work together is neither of you ever get to blame anyone but you. No projection, no blaming other people. You've got to be willing to each take 100% responsibility for your experience. Not your partner's behavior, but just your experience and how we react or respond to our partner. That's all on us. So if you're not doing that, if you don't have the self-awareness to do that, if you don't even have a willingness to entertain that, then that's an enormous block that prevents intimacy, it prevents healthy vulnerability, and it prevents easier conflict resolution. It'll promote conflict avoidance, and that's deadly. And one last block I would say is if you're ignorant about the ins and outs of masculine energy and feminine energy and the polarities between them. If you don't know that, your relationship is much more difficult to navigate.
I'm really hearing how vital it is to learn. It's the one skill we don't get taught in school, right? I'm sure you've heard that said that a million times. We don't get taught how to communicate with each other. We aren't necessarily taught about the different ways men and women can process and how to take self-responsibility. The moment I knew something had changed was the moment that I came to Jeffrey and said to him, that whole interchange we just had, I set up because I wasn't being honest with you about.
Yeah.
And then the whole conversation changed, and we got to what was the real truth, was that I was scared. And almost always it's because I'm scared of something, right? If I'm being honest.
Well, and having said that, I think that's another thing that is a critical variable in healthy and successful relationship is your relationship with fear. If you just keep giving in to a normal tendency to avoid what scares you, that, the brain is wired, no, that's not good. Don't go there. But if you don't learn to, really be afraid and try it anyway, if somebody dares you to ride a tricycle across the Snake River Canyon, that fear would be a healthy thing to listen to. But, I'm talking about, do you write that blog post that you think is going to piss people off? Do you tell your partner you really don't like that new dress that she just bought, or you think that the glasses that he just bought look horrible on him? Little slice of real life from my relationship. If you run from that, then, as you were just saying, Misa, the foundation that you're really by default creating is lies and quicksand.
Yeah.
And that will catch up with you sooner or later. I can tell you that from my own experience. It catches up. So ultimately, the truth is going to win. So why not be proactive and, practice being truthful with yourself first, because we're the biggest liars on the planet to ourselves by default, in my opinion. So, but if I'm lying to me, then there's got to be a way I'm hedging my truthfulness with the people I care about. So you gotta keep it real.
Yeah. And finding that way to navigate sharing truth, how to do that in a way that is honest and that hopefully your partner can receive, that it's done respectfully. Because I've also seen, and I've been the truth sayer who says it so harshly. It's amazing that I'm still with a person, I'm still with Jeffrey. He's whoa, woman. Whoa.
Well, fortunately for you, Jeffrey has there's a kind of a Buddha quality to him that I picked up on the first time I ever met him. And that's really, for people like you and I that do the kind of work we do, I think having a partner that's that grounded and also very open-hearted, that's something our spouses share, big hearts, and really grounded, and they don't have a problem going, no, that really doesn't look good.
Yeah.
That can be enormously helpful for a conscious relationship.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's fundamental. Every now and then he will say, where is the spiritual woman I married? Because I'm in my whatever, my passion,
Right.
my anger, I've had it with whatever. And he's like, where are you? And thank God for that, because what he basically has said, you don't get time off from being your most essential spiritual self. Yes, you need a couple of minutes to vent, of course. You're human, I got it. But no, you don't get to linger there, woman. I need you to be here with me. And thank goodness for that. And I think in the spiritual journey, and I hear this a lot, and I'm curious to hear if you hear it. I hear a lot of surprise, right? When somebody's dedicated to a spiritual path, that they ever have a problem. And it's a myth I really want to just shatter.
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Well, we have to shatter it, don't we? I mean, otherwise, what does it say? Every time I have a problem, something must be wrong with me, rather than, oh, this is my opportunity for growth.
Oh, yeah. When I was in my mid-30s when everything fell apart. And I started moving on to a spiritual path. And I used to, when I look back on how I looked at it back then, I was really wanting to pursue spirituality as a spiritual bypass. And I had this perception that if I just meditate enough or do the right mantras enough or whatever, I will hit nirvana. I'll never be an asshole again, and I'll never be I'll never be rude or whatever.
Yep.
And I would go, if any of that came out, I would just beat myself up horrifically.
Yep.
What kind of spiritual student are you? And this is the thing, the way I have come to think about it and feel about it is my humanity, which includes my shadow and all the dark I have in me and all the light. Spirit uses all of that to get me down the path of more awareness, more enlightenment. And so I think a key difference to what you're saying is that when you know that, when you really get it, that being a spiritual student, being a spiritual teacher of some kind, being a spiritual leader of some kind, if you don't have your humanity, and if you're not working with how to manage your human emotions, your human thoughts, your human ego, then you are essentially, in my opinion, you're destined to never reach your spiritual potential, because it's all that stuff that, like, when I am just screwed up to the max, it's me actually going to Spirit in prayer, in devotion, literally being on my knees, broken, saying, I give up. I give it over, I don't know what to do. You help me. And then be smart enough to be listening and watching how Spirit gives you the direction, the intervention, the answer, the clue, all stuff it took me years to figure out. So now when my ego mind wants to, act out, it wants to make me believe that, Sarah's a jerk because she said X, Y, Z. Now it's actually the most spiritual thing to do the work of getting through my own shit, owning it and cleaning it up. And if I make a mess, clean that up and own it, own all of it. That's a very spiritual way of living, in my opinion.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I loved what you described, because there's a difference between the surrender that gives up and continues to blame and the kind of surrender that you're talking about where, okay, my human ego is not getting it. And I'm getting still. I'm surrendering to divine wisdom, love, whatever you think of it, but surrendering to what's greater and allowing that to then come through our humanness. That's a whole different experience. And I don't think that happens once in a lifetime. Boom, you're enlightened and now everything's good. And my ancestors, I love how they describe it, and I think you'll appreciate it too. In fact, they don't even think of it, they don't even teach it in the way we commonly think of it as shadow and light, right? My shadow side's my bad stuff. They just talk about friction. That just incarnating in the way that we do, there is friction. And you can be the most enlightened being in the world, and there is friction, right? There is friction. At some level, you've made a choice, and boom, it just brought you face to face with some form of friction. And that has made sense to me. That if we can, within our relationships, especially if we're conscious spiritual individuals, stop looking for perfection.
Yeah.
And allow ourselves to be in the divine humanness of it all. It changes everything.
And it does. I like that a lot. And add to that, I would offer, always be curious.
Yes.
That's something that I've deeply appreciated in the last few years. I've really kind of found myself migrating into more of a Buddhist path. And that's one of the things I'm most, and that's where friction, like if I'm in friction, if I relate to it like a problem rather than just going through it and bringing awareness and curiosity to, wonder what's up here. And then consciously allowing myself to feel the emotion without mistaking the emotion for the grand truth of anything. Mm-hmm. That, for me anyway, has cultivated a more refined sense of my higher self, and it's a better compass than we have if we're just solely going off of our ego patterns.
Oh, I love that. And it's such a gift to a relationship when we're in conflict and just with each other. I really picked that up, that sense of the magic that happens in the relationship when I'm simply curious about the person that I love.
Yeah, I mean, that's another, I just was thinking about that on Christmas Eve. We had a good friend of ours over for dinner we've kind of been a pod, life in COVID. And now I'm not remembering exactly what Sarah said, but she was sharing something with our friend that she used to love when she was younger that I'd never heard before. So I think that is very cool that 39 years in, and this is a practical tip to anyone in a relationship. The minute you think you really, really know your partner, you're probably wrong. There's always more to unfold, and stuff that unfolds too over time. You know, things that are important to me now are very different than when I was 24. And, same with Sarah. I'm seeing and learning new things about her that are organically coming up as a part of aging. That's a whole nother series to do sometime. Yeah. Age and relationships. Woo! But always be curious about who is she or who is he?
Yes.
Good. Keeps it fresh.
Absolutely. Awesome. Oh, I'm loving this conversation so very much. And you have a gift for our viewers today. Would you talk about that?
Sure. I do. One of the things that I've learned is really important and helpful is, in all the years I've been coaching couples, one of the first things I ask them is, well, when you two got together, did you know what you wanted out of a relationship? No, we had a good time and we were great in bed together and we both liked rock and roll. What else is there? And
yeah.
So I think that what finally came to me from how often I would hear answers like that, or I would ask people, well, what kind of relationship do you want? Or did you want? Because there's three key types of relationship. One is carefree, where let's just have a good time and we don't need to get intense or get into any of that deep shit. Another one is careful, which is walk on eggshells with each other at all costs. And then the third is caring, which is the relationship you have where you see the relationship as your best growth path. Spiritual growth, personal growth. So out of that came the first book, Built to Last, and a video course on what does it mean to actually design your relationship before you get in it, maybe even before you meet. you're one. But certainly if you're dating, that's the time to consciously design the kind of relationship that you both envision and that turns you on and scares the crap out of you if you do it right. So the gift is that 4-part video series on how do you design a conscious relationship. And each module also comes with a worksheet that's meant to further prime the pump and get you thinking and feeling. So that's my gift to everybody.
I love it. I love it. I wish Geoff and I had it early on, so it'll be fun to...
Well, sign up for your summit and click on my gift and you'll get it.
There we go. I love it.
It's never too late. It really isn't. I mean, I think it's a perfect thing when you've been with someone as long as you and Geoff have been together, or like Sarah and I have, because you don't let a house, if you buy a house when you're 24, when you're 64, if you haven't done anything to redecorate it, renovate it maybe, freshen it up, ultimately the whole thing's going to come crashing down from rot. So this program is one that just, you could use it over and over and over again, and it'll always give you some fresh perspective and fresh fruit to work with.
I love that. I really do. The curiosity we were talking about, I can feel it in the program, that opportunity to really be curious about yourself and your love.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So, Geoff, leave us with a hot tip. Like, what is it that you think it takes to succeed in creating a relationship built to last? One hot tip. I know there are many. One today.
Yeah. Remember the meaning of commitment. If you, I don't believe that because you commit to somebody at the altar, that guarantees or should guarantee that you're going to grow old together and die together. But what I know is if you don't every day come from a place of remembering and grounding into, this is the person that I am committed to. This is the relationship that I'm committed to. And that when things get hard, and they do often, so any Hollywood bullshit about how awesome relationship always is just that. So it gets hard, it gets awesome, then it gets hard again. So commitment, I'll just speak for me. Sarah and I have gone through several things that would have destroyed most relationships. And us along with it. And the commitment, we took it seriously, not bailing on this unless there's clearly no other option. But the ego will bail when it gets hard, scary, or when it gets to, I have to look at my side. So commitment is a crazy glue that if you remember that when it's tough, that can give you some extra mileage.
Geoff, when you say commitment, what in your mind are you committing to? This seems really important because of the women I work with who end up in relationships that they're not gonna, that there's not glue there to begin with, and they didn't know that when they got in. So really, would you take that a little deeper?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's a good point. To me, my commitment to Sarah and our marriage, I'm committed to bringing the best I can of myself and giving myself room to be human and flawed, and giving my wife the same permission. I'm committed to not giving up when it's hard. And I'm also committed to ultimately, if our relationship was flawed or fatally flawed from the beginning and it just took us a while to notice it, or if a partner changes and becomes abusive or becomes, I realize that I've married a narcissist. I run into that one a lot. Then here's how I just saw it. It's like the commitment to a relationship is on a foundation of commitment to my self-integrity and my self-well-being. And there is no circumstance under which frequent abuse, for example, commitment should not be used as a justification for suffering. So you start with, I'm committed to being this kind of person, living by these values, and living in the best integrity I can muster at any given moment. And to be loving to and with myself. Then the relationship on top of that, there has to be a synergistic connection. And if that gets severed for whatever reason, then I'm going to look and see, is there a way for this to be repaired, reinvented, whatever, which is a lot of what my work is with people. And if the answer is no, then I'm honoring this foundational commitment to myself to leave.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because I think
Does that help?
I think it is helpful to recognize, if that's the foundation, then you are able to bring the very best of you to the relationship. You're giving that relationship, that partnership, the best chance it's got to go as deep as it can go, and that you can take it together. And it's got to be built on some self-love. If you don't have enough self-love in there, there's nothing you're going to do that's going to generate it from the relationship.
No.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Perfect commitment. I love it. Oh, Geoff, what a great conversation with you. Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Always great to get to chat with you, because we always come up with cool stuff together.
True.
So I enjoyed it.
Good. I'm glad. And I hope the viewers did too. And I want to thank everybody who's here today for all that you do to make your relationships more conscious and more fulfilling. Your presence to this is a gift to the entire world and to the consciousness of the world. So, and for your happiness. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Geoff. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all in the next interview. So much love.